The Western Front was a lot smaller in size compared to the Eastern Front. On the Western Front, the soldiers were able to dig trenches and block off an entire region, meaning the only way to get through it would be to cross the area of trenches, which resulted in a defensive stalemate across the Western Front. Generally, after days and days of fighting, only small areas of land would be gained. Going over the top is a well-known phrase come out of World War One. This is when men were ordered to climb out of their trench, carrying their weapons with bayonets, and make their way through a network of barbed wire, gunfire, and shell fire. The goal was to reach the enemy's front line and try and seize their trench in position. Mostly, these tactics were fairly unsuccessful and resulted in extremely high amounts of casualties. This story comes from Arthur Guy Empy's book, Over the Top. It gives an account of his life in World War One and what trench warfare was really like. The story you're about to hear is of him crawling towards enemy lines, trying to go undetected. After tea, Lieutenant Stores of our section came into the dugout and informed me that I was for a reconnoitring patrol and would carry 6 Mills bombs. At 11:30 that night, 12 men, our lieutenant and myself, went out on in front on a patrol in no man's land. We cruised around in the dark for about 2 hours, just knocking about, looking for trouble, on the lookout for Germans working parties to see what they were doing. Around 2 in the morning, we were carefully picking our way, about 30 yards in front of the German barbed wire, when we walked into Germans covering party, nearly 30 strong. Then the music started, the fiddler rendered his bill, and we paid. Fighting in the dark with a bayonet is not very pleasant. The Germans took it on the run, but our officer was no novice at the game and didn't follow them. He gave the order, down on the ground, hug it close. Just in time too, because a volley skimmed over our heads. Then in low tones, we were told to separate and crawl back to our trenches, each man on his own. We could see the flashes of their rifles in the darkness, but the bullets were going over our heads. We lost 3 men killed, and 1 wounded in the arm. If it hadn't been for our officer's quick thinking, the whole patrol would have been probably wiped out. After about 20 minutes wait, we went out again and discovered that the Germans had a wiring party working on their barbed wire. We returned to our trenches unobserved with the information, and our machine guns immediately got busy. The next night, 4 men were sent out to go over and examine the German barbed wire and see if they had cut lanes through it. If so, this presaged an early morning attack on our trenches. Of course, I had to be one of the 4 selected for the job. It was just like sending a fellow to the undertaker's to order his own coffin. At 10 o'clock we started out, armed with 3 bombs, a bayonet and a revolver. After getting into no man's land, we separated, crawling 4 or 5 feet at a time, ducking star shells, with strays cracking overhead. I reached the wire. I scouted along this, inch by inch, scarcely breathing. I could hear them talking in their trench. My heart was pounding against my ribs. One false move, or the least noise from me, meant discovery and almost certain death. After covering my sector, I quietly crawled back. I had gotten about halfway when I noticed that my revolver was missing. It was pitch dark. I turned about to see if I could find it. It couldn't be far away, because about 3 or 4 minutes previously, I had felt the butt in the holster. I crawled around in circles and at last found it. Then started on my way back to our trenches, as I thought. Pretty soon I reached the barbed wire, and was just going to give the password, when something told me not to. I put out my hand and touched one of the barbed wire stakes. It was iron. The British ones are of wood, while the German are iron. My heart stopped beating. By mistake, I'd crawled back to the German lines. I slowly turned about, and my tunic got caught on the wire and made a loud ripping noise. A sharp challenge rang out. I sprang to my feet, ducking low, and ran madly back to our lines. The Germans started firing. The bullets were biting all around me, when bang, I smashed into our wire, and a sharp challenge, "Oh, who comes there?" rang out. I gasped out the password, and groping my way through the line in the wire, tearing my hands and uniform, I tumbled into our trench and was safe. But I was a nervous wreck for an hour, until a drink of rum brought me round.